How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Master Drum Whiskey Room. I am Jason C, and if you're a subscriber, always glad to see you here again. If it's your first time here looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right place. So think about hitting that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video. So the William Heaven Hill line is one of Heaven Hill's distillery exclusive series that can only be bought in their gift shop. Each iteration is meant to exemplify the abilities of Heaven Hill's master distillers and is today's review. So William Heaven Hill Bourbon is named after the man who owned the land and built the first distillery on the Heaven Hill site. Distilling was a family tradition for William, and the limestone spring William used to make his bourbon was the same spring that inspired Heaven Hill's original company name, the Old Heaven Hill Springs Distillery. So this is the 6th edition of the William Heaven Hill exclusive series available at the Heaven Hill Distillery. This is a 16-year-old small batch bourbon. Less than 60 barrels were used, but they were dumped into separate small batches to preserve each warehouse's unique aging effect on those barrels. Now, my bottle is the 3rd small batch of 13 barrels that was aged for 16 years in Rickhouse M on the 5th floor before the barrel proof was cut down to 106 proof. All right, guys, so here's a close-up of the bottle, and as you can see, I've taken a few pours of this and also shared a good amount of it to get some first impressions for some other bourbon enthusiasts. Now, the first thing you need to know that the William Heaven Hill releases are available only at the Heaven Hill Bourbon Heritage Center, but sometimes a few bottles sneak out online to exclusive retailers as well. Actually, that's where I got mine. I got lucky enough to get this at a retailer. Now, as I mentioned, this is 16 years old and has the standard mash bill of 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. Now, with a price tag of $250, that far exceeds most premium bourbons of comparable age, and it's no wonder that the label actually on the back recommends it for any whiskey connoisseur's collection. So let's see if it's worth the price. Here we go. Let's get a pour. Obviously, this is going to have a really nice color to it, being it's 16 years old. Really deep and rich. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, so as I mentioned, I have been taking a few pours of this, as you can see, to try to really get a good understanding of the bottle, the experience, and if it's really worth that type of a price point, if you happen to run into it. Let's first start with the color. So as you can see, the color here, it's just a really beautiful colored bourbon. It's deep, it's dark, it's rich. There's some mahogany to it, a little bit of a copper hue to it as well. Really sticks to the glass really nicely. That's 16 years in the barrel, you can really tell. It's really picked up a lot of the color from the aging process. Really nice looking bourbon. So let's get into the nose and see what we get here. All right, so right off the bat, you get a nice dark cherry and a deep, rich oak flavor to it as well. You know, that's 16 years in there that you're going to pick up a lot of oak influence. There's a dark chocolate aspect to it. This is one of those bourbons where you're gonna, if you're into leather, tobacco notes, it's definitely in here to be found. You definitely get a little bit of that, like a fresh leather jacket almost. You know, you are getting some good typical bourbon notes. You're getting some vanilla. You're getting some rich caramels in there. But yeah, between the oak, the cherry, the chocolate, it does really everything you want a well-aged bourbon to do. But let's see if it matches the palate. Here we go. Cheers for the first sip. Wow, this is all just, even from the first pour that I had it, this was coming through with a huge, deep, rich, dark chocolate and cherry note to me. A lot of chocolate cherry, a lot of oak richness to it. It is sticking around a little bit, so let's go for another sip and let's see what we get. Okay, so second sip, still getting some chocolate, still getting a little bit of cherry, but now it's leveled out a little bit, and already on the second sip, you're getting more typical bourbon notes. You're getting some caramel, some vanillas. You are getting a good amount of oak there too. A lot of that oak influence is really kind of sticking around. It's not bitter, thankfully, because sometimes an older age bourbon, you know, if it's just a little bit too overaged, you get some bitter wood characteristics, and I'm not getting that here, thank goodness. All right, let's go for another sip. It's got a lot of depth to it. The body of it, the mouthfeel, the mouth coating of it, it's really rich. Definitely sticks around the palate a little bit. The finish on it so far, it's giving me a nice medium finish. It's not long. It's only 106 proof, so it's not gonna kill you with some afterburn, but you do feel it. It does stick around. It's staying more oaky and black peppery right there, right on the very end. It's got a really nice balance of sweet, oak, and some black pepper on the end there. It's nice so far. Let's go in for another sip. Cheers. All right, so the experience here has been kind of the same that I've been getting here since I've been sipping on this a little bit. You're getting some really nice bourbon flavors, but you know, those really rich characteristics that I was getting in the first couple sips, the dark chocolate, the cherry, some of that tobacco and leather, it's there, but it gets flat real quick. And then the finish on it though is staying around, it's sticking around rather nicely, but I feel like those flavors should just be consistent from sip to sip, you know, for that price point and for that age. So let's go for another sip and see what we get. Yeah, see now that cherry note, the chocolate note I would say is still there. The cherry note has kind of gone away a little bit. You're just getting some nice caramel, vanilla, oak. You know, the vanilla is actually kind of coming more to the forefront now. You're getting more of a richer vanilla note as you keep sipping on it, which is kind of nice. But the chocolate aspect is still sticking around. The cherry note has gone away slightly, a little bit there. The black pepper is still kind of hanging around the palate, which is kind of nice, but it definitely changes as you keep sipping on it. So when I first opened this bottle, what I was getting right off the bat was just a ton of oak, and it was almost off-putting a little bit. But then once you get a little bit of air into it, it does help it a lot. But as you keep sipping on it, some of those flavors also mellow out a little bit. Let's go in for one last sip. Cheers. All right, so full experience here. When you first take a sip, the first time it hits your palate, you're gonna get a ton of oak, a ton of caramel, some vanillas. You're gonna get that dark chocolate flavor, I think. And then right when it hits mid-palate, the flavors kind of mellow out and you're kind of left with more oak, but that leathery tobacco type flavor profile from a well-aged bourbon really kind of comes through in the mid-palate. And then the finish is what you're really kind of left with is more tobacco, more leather, more oak, and definitely that pepperiness that kind of sticks around on the back of your palate. But now that the finish, I'm getting a little bit used to it. You're not really feeling it, and it's kind of falling flat there on the finish a little bit. So the flavor profiles in this are really good, but unfortunately for the whole experience, I think it just doesn't stay consistent enough for me to warrant the price point on it. All right, guys, so while I really enjoyed this bottle of William Heaven Hill and would love to try their other releases on a more consistent basis, I can't say that it's really worth the price tag. It's got a really nice flavor profile. It's very rich. It's very oaky. That tobacco leather note really comes through, which some people are really big fans of with higher aged bourbons. Now, if this were priced, you know, I know it's 16 years old, but if this came in at about maybe $150 rather than $250, and if you're into ultra-aged bourbons and like that tobacco leather finish, I could probably warrant the price tag for that. But considering today's saturated market with so many great bourbons out there, I just really feel like there's better things to be had, especially when this will cost about $250. All right, guys, so since this is a distillery exclusive and kind of hard to get your hands on unless you're down in Kentucky, I want to continue with my new feature of giving you alternative bottles that kind of fit this flavor profile or at least get close to it. So the first option I would say is look for a Knob Creek store pick. Knob Creek store picks can range anywhere from 9 years old all the way up to 14 years old. They're about $50, $60 sometimes, depending where you get it. And those offer very rich, deep oak notes. Some of them do have a more of a smoky tobacco leathery finish to them. And for my second recommendation, I want to call out Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Now, I know it's the same producer, it's the same mash bill, they're going to be close in flavor profile, but I do want to call out two specific batches. Batch C918 from last year and batch C917 from the year before. These had more of an oak and leathery tobacco finish to me than other Elijah Craig Barrel Proof releases. There's just something about the C batches to me that kind of offer up a little bit more of an intense oak flavor, a nice sweet oak, and maybe a little bit of hint of a tobacco and leathery type note to it. It's not as intense as this one, but you are getting more proof in this bottle. You're getting a 12-year-old bourbon. This is 16. It's only 4 years younger. And a lot of those notes that you're going to find in those two batches get pretty close to this. So as you kind of think about the pricing, this coming in at $250, this coming in at only $50, $60, sometimes $80 in some areas, this is a way better bargain, a way better value, and you're getting way more for your money. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for watching the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. I really appreciate you coming by and watching this review for the William Heaven Hill 16-year-old small batch bourbon. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram and also find me on Twitter. Let me know if you've had this, come across a bottle. Let me know what your thoughts are. And as I always say, it is not about the whiskey. It is the people you share it with. So cheers, and I'll see you again soon.